don't know. Yay, we're live. We're live, Alex. We're live.
Are we live?
Yes, we're live now.
Are we alive?
Yes, we are.
Is this a fantasy?
Well, I could see what was going on because I'm like in the back. I'm sitting here going, I'll do this all the time, Alex. I'll sort it out for you. Right, do you want to say hello and introduce everyone?
Welcome, Graham. Welcome, Liz. Does everyone know Graham? Everyone knows Graham. You're the scouser that's travelled around the world.
I've done more than travel around the world, young man. Look, I've got 2 Guinness World Records. Didn't get a record for going on holiday. On a flight.
Isn't there another guy that's just actually walked it? He's taken like he left
Carl
before
Bushby.
Brexit.
Yeah, no, he left in the late 90s. He's walked from the tip of Argentina and Chile, like the bottom of South America, and he's been walking back for the last 27, 28 years.
I guess you could go over the Bering Straits, couldn't you?
He walked over the Bering Straits, yeah. But then he got into Russia and he kept getting deported from Russia. So he kept on having to like do loads of paperwork and then go back to the bit where he left off and continue his journey from there. So it's taken a lot longer than it otherwise would do. But yeah, his name's Carl Bushby. He's heading back to Hull. He should be back soon. I'm going to go and see him. He was one of the inspirations for my journey to every country without flying. Carl, I've got his book called Giant Steps.
Did you meet him on your travels or not?
No,
It's just impossible.
Didn't run into each other. I think by the time like I was traveling, he was already trying to get through Russia, which took like 20 years.
Oh my God.
Oh, when he swam across the Caspian Sea because he couldn't get back into Russia. He swam across the Caspian Sea.
That's crazy.
Insane.
I know. He had a support boat, and what would happen is he'll swim for a day, and then he'll climb on the boat, sleep on the boat, and get back to the exact GPS position that he left off. Get back in the water and swim again. Yeah.
Would have almost thought you could have just got it from beach to beach, couldn't you? But even that would be.
No, he had to go across because you've got Russia on the north side of the Caspian Sea.
Oh, so you wouldn't be able to.
Why are we talking about this? We should be talking about the elections.
I was about to say, come on, I'm ready.
Come on.
Liz.
Oh
elections.
My God.
Are you happy with Wales?
Do you know what? I am happy about Wales, but I'm also scared because it's such a groundbreaking development, and now that Plaid Cymru are in charge, they've got the same problem as everyone else. They've got to deliver, and for Westminster, for Labour, they're going to not make that easy for the devolved government. But they were treating Labour government so badly anyway, so it will be probably a more ratcheting of anger. And look, the 3 devolved governments now are aligned, and that is going to be hugely problematic going forward for Westminster. And I never wanted Welsh independence, but Brexit has sort of forced that to go through. And for the devolved governments, for the devolved nations, they know how much better it is to be in the European Union because Northern Ireland, to all intents and purposes, is still in the EU, and they haven't got the economic tragedies that are going on, particularly in Wales, which has always been exploited by Westminster. The system is broken, and so I think I didn't want Brexit. I didn't want to go through all of the shit that we're going through, but I tried my best to stop it. But now these chain of events keep happening. I hope that Starmer would come in and do the right thing and get us back to Europe and steady the ship. But he's played a sneaky game in talking about getting back to Europe when actually attaching us to America. And do you know what? It really pisses me off, because if they'd come out and sold Brexit actually for what it is, they never ever would have got 10% of the vote. But they keep using populism to deliver the opposite of what everybody wants by using anger about the dismantling of the welfare state, which has been going on since the welfare state was actually built by Attlee. The right-wing establishment of the country never wanted the welfare state because they think it causes overpopulation.
Well, I did a video yesterday and I got really angry because I suddenly started realizing all these facts had come forward, because we did a Saturday roast because everything had That's why we're live today, guys. In the chat, if you want to ask us a question, just hit that super chat, and we'll answer anything that you throw at us. How many hospitals were built under Blair and Brown? I'm asking both of you. What do you think? And the chat, if you want to join in.
Well,
how many hospitals were built under Blair and Brown?
Wasn't there like a lot of push towards the private partner?
Yes.
There was that.
Public.
Not going to disagree. Yeah. There was that. But how many were built?
I don't know. 40. Go on. How many?
You think 40? Liz?
I don't know. But there were a lot closed as well. Like in Swindon, we had a new one, but they closed a lot of the cottage hospitals. So we had a super hospital in which replaced lots of the smaller hospitals. So
yeah.
So I'm not a big fan of those changes, because again, I think for resilience we need smaller community-driven care.
I'd agree with that.
Not the American
I think bring back college
system.
hospitals. But you think 1, 10, 20, 40?
Oh no, I thought because the PFI caused a lot of new schools and a lot of new hospitals, but we're now again paying for that because we've got a ridiculous interest rate on those PFIs.
I think a lot of them are closing, actually.
And they've still got the maintenance contracts as well.
Yeah.
118.
118.
118. Do you know how many being built since?
Probably fuck all.
None.
You give a guess. What do you think?
None.
Well, Liverpool got a new hospital, but they closed the old one down, so I don't know if that counts. Is this a net gain?
Yeah.
No, actual construction.
Oh, okay. Oh, there'll be I don't know, 20 or something.
2. One of yours in Liverpool, and then there was a cancer research hospital.
And the one in Liverpool took way longer than it was supposed to, because it was, what's the name of that that company that went tits up? Carillion. Sorry, Carillion's a band. Carillion. They were in charge of sorting the hospital, and they subcontracted to subcontractors, and they were over leveraged, and they went bankrupt, and the hospital sat there for years, half finished.
It's a joke, isn't it?
It's done now, but yeah,
it's a joke. That's why nothing works. It's 16 years.
Yeah, well, what we've got is that we used to have feudalism and we escaped it, and the feudalism was lords, in estates, and what we've got now is that those lords are now in corporations. So even if you just look at News International, run by the Murdoch family, they are insulated within these corporations because they're financialized realities which people can invest in, and then they just are completely untouchable, and they can't fail, because if they fail, they get bailed out, as we saw with Carillion, and the state bails them out.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the war that's been.
Sounds like a welfare state.
Well, it happened.
It's a welfare state for the mega rich. Yeah, that's what we have.
The mega rich in
we get
reverse.
the subsidies and handouts all the time.
It's an oligarchy, and it's been happening since 1964, when they got rid of this thing called resale price maintenance under Alec Douglas-Home, who was a Tory MP, a PM, who became Prime Minister because he was in the Lords. He wasn't even MP.
I was talking about him on the show the other day,
Yeah. And
short-lived
they had like
ministers.
a Brexit war in 1964 about RPM. They promised cheaper food, but it was Tesco's owner who pushed the government to do this. And what happened was, and this is why everyone's angry. I mean, I'm older than you two, so I remember what life was like in the 60s. We didn't have supermarkets. We had the odd Spar shop, but mostly it was butchers, your grocery store,
bakers.
And then your bakers. Everything was separate, and your high street.
Wimpy. Don't forget Wimpy.
Tinkers, tailors,
Don't
soldiers,
forget Wimpy.
spies.
Wimpy came in a bit later in the 70s.
McDonald's, but it was on a plate.
Oh, McDonald's
Genius.
didn't really come in to quite late.
No, Wimpy came on a plate. You got your burger and your chips on a plate.
Yeah.
But
it was on a proper plate, proper ceramic plate.
I didn't eat a McDonald's until, I reckon it was probably 1980 was the first McDonald's
that
I
must have been
ever
quite
had.
a queue.
They opened one in Swansea. And we drove to Swansea to go and eat it. Yeah, it was in the early 1980s anyway. So, But that's what's been going on. The RPM protected the smaller businesses from being undercut by bigger businesses. So monopolization. So it's like a T-Rex coming out and eating everything. But the problem with this reality is that eventually, particularly with food production, once there's just T-Rexes in charge, the processors and everyone don't recognize that it's actually the smaller farms that are needed to do the difficult work, like we do, carving, lambing, and it's hard to see how a robot's going to be able to do that. So, and that's why actually the beef numbers globally have been crashing because of the T-Rex effect in America. A lot of the smaller farms are crashing, and then they're not feeding those animals into the chain, so the numbers are dropping. But perhaps they'll replace it with lab-grown meat, and they'll just experiment on people because they don't know what the human health impacts are of eating lab-grown meat.
I think there was a piece about the chicken effects, and that the chicken didn't last as long because this lab-grown chicken has been made, I think, in China, and actually is quite detrimental to your health.
I'll give it a go. I'll be a guinea pig.
You'd give it a go.
That. Yeah.
Would you?
I eat anything. Yeah, I've eaten some messed up stuff in my time. You know when like I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. The guy going, and I'm like, oh, that looks all right.
Will you?
Wichity grub pate tastes a lot like hummus.
Deep fried Mars bar.
Yeah, I've had deep fried Mars bar in Scotland. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's so good.
The worst thing I've ever eaten was fertilized duck egg called balut in the Philippines. That was disgusting.
Oh wow!
It had like a little, it had a little duck embryo inside it, and it was
my God!
And it tasted as foul as it sounds. I've also eaten something in China and nudged the guy next to me and just gone, "Is this dog?" And he's just not understanding. I went, "Woof woof," and he's like, "Yeah, woof woof," and I'm like, "Oh!" And I was actually sick after that.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Don't recommend it, peeps at home. Don't eat your pets; they don't taste good.
And
it's morally reprehensible as well, obviously. But
at least we have organic and natural product. The problem that you've got with lab-grown meat is that it has to be filled with chemicals to survive because it doesn't have any of the natural enzymes. So that's why I wouldn't eat it. Yeah.
Going back on track with the elections, what about Scotland then? What are your thoughts on Scottish independence? We're talking about how bad the South is. And basically these governments do fuck all from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Like how have you built 2 hospitals in 16 years? I'll be quick. Police stations, they shut more than they opened.
Yeah.
Fire stations shut more than they opened. I mean, you could argue a little bit.
Are we talking about, Alex? Are you talking about from 2010? Is that what you're talking about? Is that
since the beginning of the Blair administration up until now. So in between from Blair, and Brown, to now. So as soon as Cameron came into now.
So 2010. So when Labour were in, they actually opened stuff, and then after that they just.
I mean, you could talk about big projects as well. Under Tony Blair, you had the Channel Crossing completion started under Major. You had HS1, Jubilee Line, the Elizabeth Line was started. Thames Barrow was started.
HS2.
The O2 was built.
HS2.
The Olympic Park was built.
Yeah.
And you're going, what have they done since? They couldn't even do HS2.
Yeah,
they didn't take it all the way up north. They just ignored the north again.
They should have started north. But Alex, can we just go back to talk about Wales for a moment? Because don't forget, Plaid Cymru didn't get an overall majority, and neither did the SNP in Scotland. So they're going to have to team up with smaller parties. It does look like they'll probably team up with Labour because the Greens don't have the numbers in Wales. Do you think? There's you shaking your head.
I think they're going to try and govern as a minority government.
Okay.
And
Scotland will probably go with the Greens, won't they? Sorry, the SNP.
Scotland will go with the SNP will go with the Greens. But I think that Plaid Cymru will go with a minority. I mean, it's interesting because Farage was bigging up that he was going to win in Wales. I mean, oh, thank fuck. It's just he didn't even turn up there because he knew he was going to bottom out there. Thank God.
He called Welsh a foreign language.
They were predicting my own.
They still voted for him.
Yeah.
But don't forget, there's a lot of English people in Wales.
It's the English expats. It's the English expats. You know what expats are like? The English immigrants.
I'm a Welsh
Senegal.
expat. Well, no, I have to be an immigrant, yeah, because I'm a Welsh immigrant in England.
but
But yes, there's a lot of English people in Wales, yeah, particularly on the east side.
but
Yeah.
But
do you
even with Labour, is that enough for a majority? I don't think it
What?
is.
yeah, if they team up with Plaid Cymru, if they team up with Labour, then they have enough seats to have a majority.
Well, they're going to rule as a minority government, and it'll have to be an issue by issue thing. They're
Yeah.
not going to go into
Yeah.
a coalition with them.
Right, okay.
So it'll be, they will pick their issues and go from there. So they will start building on issues. But really, the devolved governments have got very limited powers to really bring change. They're just really managers of a budget. And the problem for Wales in particular is there's a massive black hole because of Brexit. And they promised to replace that funding, and of course they haven't. And a lot worse is happening because where the pits were closed, a lot of farmers, sheep farmers took over in the valleys. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been there, but they are so deprived. I can't tell you how poor it is there. So now they're attacking the farmers as well. So in the valleys, there's just going to be nothing left. It really is shocking. I don't know what they expect to do with these communities.
But Farage
they are
and
so poor.
Farage and Lee Anderson said, just open up another coal pit. That'll fix everything, won't it?
Well, I don't know.
What to say to that?
Well, there's lots of arguments about the running down of the mining industry. It shouldn't have been collapsed as it was collapsed. It did need investment, and we ended up.
We had that up here in Durham. Like, they shut the pits and didn't put anything in its place, and that's why unemployment, poverty is so much up here. And
it's heartbreaking. And we've been importing coal for decades. This is the Thatcherism plan, which actually, if you listen to what they say, has really continued. We've had a sort of relay race of power, which the media, which has been controlled by so much by Murdoch, but before Murdoch was Maxwell, and they are pushing forward what they want. And Harold Wilson was pushed out. He wanted to bring in a sovereign wealth fund, as they have in Norway. I mean, I could actually cry my eyes out about what has been done to us. The resources from Scotland were absolutely squandered. They were sold off to corporations on the cheap. And then they bunged a lot of my friends I have lost through drug addiction, alcoholism. I got on my bike because I didn't have children. I could do whatever I could. I left Wales under Margaret Thatcher, but a lot of my friends couldn't. And what was left behind was just go on the dole. And they offered a fairly good package for people who had a mortgage to begin with. And those people just got stuck on the dole because nothing else came through. And now they're scapegoating those people that have been stuck on the dole because there's nothing there. So that despair from Wales, I absolutely wholeheartedly understand. I mean, I was lucky in that my parents were wealthy enough to send me to a private school, but education in Wales has always been really poor because they haven't had the funding. Things got a lot better in the European Union, and then wallop, we were out, and we're back to what. And in fact, I've got a post, I will get it out, that I wrote after Brexit about what I thought was going to happen, and I knew it was going to take us back to this awful poverty and wealth for a few and controlled by a few, and that is exactly where we are. And the food situation for me is always so important because I remember the food that we had in the 60s and 70s. We had food shortages. We had mash gets smash. We had really a terrible diet of white bread, sliced bread, meat frozen, shipped in from Argentina, cooked in lard, and no variety whatsoever. It was only joining the European Union that brought a food revolution, and the variety. We didn't hardly have pasta when I was growing up. It was seen as foreign.
Turnips.
Well, having food all year round wasn't a thing. Like, you'd get tangerine season. Do you know what I mean? When you'd get the tangerines in, now you get them all year round. You get all the food all year round because we saw.
I used to have tangerines in my Christmas stocking because it was such a treat.
Yeah,
because it was a treat. That's it. That was it. Walnuts.
Well, Liz, I mean, we're talking about Plaid Cymru getting the largest share of the votes in Wales. Do you think that's going to accelerate the push towards independence for Wales, or do you think it's just going to lead to more devolution? Because don't forget, the SNP have been in charge in Scotland since 1999, and they had the referendum. I don't know if they're going to get another one anytime soon. And they have pushed for more powers. Do you think that there's a sort of...
I think, I mean, if you look what's going, it's the three together. That is the sort of magic star quality. Before it was SNP seen as a basket case, and Wales was still firmly in control of the Labour Party. So I think the three working together. So if you look what's gone on this weekend, the three leaders have got together, and Northern Ireland is well ahead of it. The polling is showing that there really is a majority now for a reunification of Ireland. So I think that all three will propel each other. And that will, especially if they can get a deal with the European Union, because they want out of this. The thing is, all of the things the Brexiteers blamed, said about the EU are actually what Westminster does to the devolved nations in particular. And it's not. It is the Brexit deal itself was put to the three parliaments. They all voted it down, and Boris Johnson still forced it through anyway.
Well, Scotland and Northern Ireland in the referendum, they voted against it.
Yeah, but the referendum didn't make a decision. The referendum was just a poll. It was advisory. It didn't, in law, because law is really important, it didn't make a decision. The decision for Brexit was made in Boris Johnson's withdrawal bill, which only Westminster voted on, which is appalling. And there isn't really a proper, and there hasn't been proper representation for the devolved nations in Westminster, because they're just seen as sort of toes.
But do you not think this is a good moment for the change in the voting system? Not only to bring in proportional representation across the whole of the British Isles, but also to bring in the UK, but also to change the House of Lords, make it more a House of Britain, and give the devolved powers more power, a veto to say no, we're not doing this. Give rights to Scotland on its energy rights, because don't forget, oil's one thing. The energy rights up there with wind is insane.
Well, they go to the king. The king owns the seabed, so that's another thing that infuriates me.
That's crazy. But
really winds me up.
More devolution for Wales. The idea that they've got I know this sounds like a massive segue here, but they've got the football board, I think it's called. So you've got FIFA, which runs all the everyday managerial stuff, and then you've got the football board, and there's 5 members, and it's the English FA, the Welsh FA, the Scottish FA, the Northern Ireland FA, and FIFA, which represents all 419 other countries and territories. And they can't do anything unless they get a majority. Now, I think that FIFA get 4 votes, but it means that if the British FAs don't want to do a rule change, like bring in VAR or change the offside rule or something, they can't do it. And I was thinking of something like that, where we have regional devolved powers, then they meet in the House of Britain, or whatever you want to call it, and they have... we can't end up in a situation where Scotland and Northern Ireland expressly do not want to leave the EU, and then they're dragged out by England and Wales. Sorry, Liz, I didn't mean to offend you there. I meant to say the English people who live in Wales.
The issue that I'm aware of, Will Hutton tweeted yesterday that we should have a federalised UK. And actually, I think that's the wrong response, because that really isn't going to be enough. They should have done that probably with the Brexit vote. Certainly, proportional representation is the way forward. The reason that Plaid Cymru won, and it's far more democratic, is because they do have a proportional representation in the devolved government elections. again, because the Tories took it away, didn't they, for a bit,
Mm.
which has limited the rise of the first past the post, allowing. I mean, there's some election results that I think I saw one Lib Dem won by sort of like 0.2 of a percent. Because just because of it literally is whoever gets the biggest result. So it was like 25%, or 20%, I think, was the winning number, because there were like 5 or 7 parties taking place. So first past the post urgently has to go. And I will argue that Starmer, instead of doing the assisted suicide bill, he should have definitely got on with that as soon as he got into power, because he won with 33% of the vote, for God's sake. I mean, at what point did you not think that that was an urgent, requirement? So they need to crack on with doing that, for sure.
The problem is it's not in the manifesto, is it? So then you have all sorts of issues that can turn up as a result. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done either. I agree. I'd rather have the
they've
Scottish
got
system.
a lot of ground that has been prepared within the Labour Party to argue that it could be on the manifesto, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is what exactly happens now. So a lot of work's been done, in particular by Neil Lawson and Compass. So I think, with a big majority, really, a government can respond to whatever they want. A prime minister in Britain has more power than most of the Western countries because of our system. So they absolutely can do that. But now they're locked in this position. He blocked Andy Burnham from coming in. And the majority would prefer Andy Burnham. He's the most popular candidate in the country to take over. But the right wing, the Blue Labour lot, which is Maurice Glassman's outfit with McSwindle and others, are trying to sort of block the popular candidate from taking over. And so they're going to try and, stop Andy coming in time to have to be prime minister. And that is because they know that Andy wants to do progressive things. And that's really where we are. So we're still in prison. That's what I'm saying to you. I don't think that they've learned any lesson from these elections, and they think that they can still use the fear of reform to gain their ways out of this. They think if we went to the polls, that everybody would do what happened with Macron, that they will unite against reform with Labour. But what they've got now, with Zach Polansky doing so well, that actually people are saying, well, actually, we'd prefer to vote for Zach Polansky than vote for Keir Starmer or Wes Streeting. And there really is a denial out there about what they are and what they represent. Before they took power in 2023, they had a meeting in Oxford with Michael Gove, Mandelson, David Lammy, all to talk about making Brexit work. Now, this is a relay race. This is not, we haven't had change, which is why everyone's angry. We've still got the same, it's a slightly different managerial team, but they've still got the same ideology of actually working for the big corporations, which is why Wes Streeting is literally doing what he's, I actually follow a lot of doctors on Twitter, and what is going on in the health service is an absolute tragedy. It's just, it's terrible.
As in what is being run down and doctors are leaving, or is there something else?
Yeah, it's just that they're breaking it. So
according
if you want to get treatment, you need to go and pay for it.
So interestingly, I'd say I felt, at least within London, that the NHS and the GPs have improved. That could just be my area, but I'm getting feedback from people that suddenly they're able to see the doctor in 24 hours, which they weren't able to do before. A&E seems to be a bit quicker, but that's a London perspective, and that's about it. I can't really comment for the rest of the country, but I thought that was the one area that they were showing improvement on, but you're suggesting you're not feeling that or seeing that.
Also, Liz, how do you feel about Labour's noises to reintegrating in certain sectors in the single market?
The problem with the Brexit message is that it's like a snake charming music, a mood music, that they placate you by making you believe that they're trying to take us back to Europe, and they're saying all nice things. So you think, oh, actually, I can live with this step-by-step process, which actually Ed Davey invented. But in truth, you have to look at what they're doing, which is what I do, and they are aligning us to America. Keir Starmer has done a deal with Donald Trump on pharmaceuticals, which commits our NHS to, I think it's 25 or 30% higher prices. Now, how the hell are they meant to afford to pay that? Also, the other major problem with doing that is that the American system is totally incompatible with the EU system. The EU has the precautionary principle, and America just actually lets the
do
humans
whatever they
test
want
it.
until
Let the
someone
T-Rex
dies.
out.
No, this is true. This is about pharmaceuticals and about food, drink,
Yeah.
anything. We say you got to make it, prove it safe before it goes to market. They say put it on the market. If anyone dies, we'll just withdraw it from the market. Shows how little the Americans care about people. They
That
really
reminds me
do.
of Fight Club. You remember that
The
scene where he's like,
Americans, the Americans
Go
really
on.
do. They're just trapped. They're in a pit, and they do care about it. And if you look on YouTube, there are so many channels that talk about the difference between European and American food, and they are totally awake to it. But they're trapped in it, and they've got all of the same problems and more that we've got because of the rule of corporation. Now, Brexit was always about actually making us more like America.
Yes.
And that's why we have this
dependence
Starmer,
on
which
America.
which is what
Dependent.
really pisses me off the most about
For our
Starmer
defence,
is that
our
he
food, everything.
has weaponized the Henry VIII powers, the Brexit powers, to get through this pharmaceutical deal and the prosperity deal, which means that we've got American beef coming in here. The beef wars with America and Europe have gone on for decades, which is about the principles. America wants Europe to be like America and dominated by America, but Europe has it was actually founded about food after everybody nearly starved in the war, and it was actually Attlee who wrote the 1947 Agriculture Act, and that was adopted into the EU treaties, number 39, and we then came out of that. We got rid of the 1947 Agriculture Act, which was in Article 39. And then we've got Michael Gove's policy, which is basically, we'll only care about the environment and we don't care if people eat shit. That's the problem. That's what I'm fighting for. And that's why I knew when the inheritance tax came in, I was like, oh my God, you're putting a bomb up underneath our food factories here, which produce healthy food for everybody and food equality, so that BlackRock, etc., can just buy everything up. And then you've got neo-feudalism with Britain owned by corporations, which is what they have in America.
What do you feel about that? You know, you're talking about the pharmaceutical deal that they did last month. Like, what would you have done in that situation? Because don't forget, Trump wants to put 100% tariffs on our pharmaceutical exports to America. And now that's zero, and and in return, we're allowing them to put up the prices of pharmaceuticals. Well, what did you say, 20, 25, 30%?
I think it's only to new drugs, though. It's not old. I don't think there's there were caveats in there.
I mean, this is the issue that we've got at the moment. We've got an absolute bloody madman in the White House, and I don't want to sound like I'm defending Labour, because they've done loads of things that piss me off since coming into power with a stonking big majority. And Liz, you mentioned they got 33% of the vote, yeah, but they've still got a majority of 150 seats. So they're like, yeah, do we really want to get rid of this system that allows us to get into power for 33 out of every 100 years?
But the big majority is causing them problems because of the soft left are really very powerful and they're quite a big group. Look, you look at what Mark Carney is doing. That's the answer to that. There is no way of feeding buns to a crocodile, and as Winston Churchill famously said. What you're suddenly crying about not being able to export to America, when actually it's a tiny fraction to what we lose with Europe, and our exports in terms of food have gone down 40% to Europe since Brexit.
We've already lost that because of bloody Brexit.
But Europe are not engaging in any reset at all, Graham. If you listen to what they say, I read the press from there and I get the messages from there. I read a lot of what Annan Menon says. And ultimately, they are saying, oh, yeah, we'll talk to you. But they know that Starmer signed an incompatible deal and put it into law without Parliament having a say to appease Donald Trump. And I think what they hope will happen is that Europe will fold and copy Britain.
Are we talking about pharmaceuticals here? Are we talking about food?
Well, they're both the same
Both.
thing. It's
It's
about
the same thing.
standards. It's exactly the same thing.
I'm just aware of the time, guys. We haven't really touched on Scotland, and we haven't actually touched on the fact that the Reform Party got a stonking vote. I know we like to meander on here, but as it's live, I will say this: I had I had an encounter with Restore. I had another one with a young Reform voter, a young Jewish kid, who came up to me, which I just couldn't. After hearing Farage and all the school tales, I just can't believe that. That blew my mind. But there was also the fact that he said he didn't like the EU because it was dictatorial, but he liked the UK version of it. And then I said, well, do you think Wales is a country? No. The UK is a country. And I said, do you think that was Scotland? No. Scotland's not a country. I said, go and tell that to the Scottish and Welsh rugby teams. See how they respond to that. But I was so dumbfounded. But then there was something else that you just touched on very briefly, Liz, which was he said, I don't see any difference between the Conservatives and Reform. They're one and the same.
Yeah.
So I'm like, are they? Are they really? Like, did Kenny Badenoch go up to the
more brazen about it?
Hello, there's a load of Tories in the Reform Party.
Yeah, they've always pretended that they're on the, they really cared. And then the Reform are just the don't care party. They're just it can't get any worse, and it's not enough for us to win. Everyone else has to lose, and it's the kind of person who sees someone else having a good time and they want to go over and kick them.
You say that, but Restore took Great Yarmouth, which hasn't really been touched. They took the whole council. It was the only place they ran. They took all 10 council seats.
Yeah,
well, they obviously didn't look at what happened in Kent after they
or what happened in where was it, Worcestershire, where they've put up the council tax by 9%.
It's almost like they don't pay attention, or they don't understand that Reform going in makes things worse.
Well, most people don't care about politics, but they know who Nigel Farage is. They don't know who the front bench are in Labour. No one does. Not even the front bench of Labour know who the front bench of Labour are.
I mean, I would say I know nothing about football, absolutely zero. But I think I probably know more about football than most people understand about politics.
Yeah.
But we don't teach politics at school. A lot of my political knowledge came from my grandfather, who was really political, and my mother was really political. As a result,
the politics A level.
Yeah.
But then you're the exception because you chose that, but you didn't get it for cheap. But then I said to the young Reform kid, I said, "Where's Wales in the Union Jack?" And he looked dumbfounded. There's no representation. There's no green. There's no dragon. There's no representation in that flag.
The truth is that as a historian, the Welsh were here first, and the English invaded.
But do you even know
also,
what
the
Welsh
issue
means?
is the Union Jack aesthetically looks quite cool, but if you put a dragon on it, it would look too cool. It would just be coolness over. It'd make all the other countries feel bad for not having a really cool flag. Sorry, Alex,
I'm going to say we'll go to Scotland, but I will say we've got 209 live viewers.
Woohoo!
Thank you, guys.
Hello, everyone.
That's a good 212. It's just.
Have we got any questions? Have we got any questions?
No one's posted the question. No one's posted the question. Obviously,
come on,
question.
Do you think?
Go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask it. Liz thinks this is a high watermark for Reform, or do you think that they are going to No,
it's not. They've got a lower vote share actually this year than last year. I think they're down by 4 points. Yeah. And the other delicious thing is that the 5 million bung could trigger a by-election. And this is really, this is going to be absolutely really interesting if that happens. And it is going to be challenging. I've thought it through. We're going to have to get behind the Conservative candidate if he stands again, because he's actually was a very good MP. I know it's hard, but we need to drop our tribalism.
I've got friends who have voted Tory. Phil Morehouse, who is as Labour as they come, he voted for the Conservative candidate against Andrea Jenkins becoming mayor in Lincolnshire.
Good. That's exactly so. I think we're going to see a real chat, and I think Nige is shitting his pants about this because. If they trigger a by-election, if he gets banned from the Commons for more than 10 days, then there can be a recall petition, and there'll be enough anti-Nige sentiment to get that over the line, and then we will have the most
They'll be
the
so
most
angry.
fierce by-election. It is going to be huge, and hopefully we will be able to get him. And because actually the vote was really split in the last election because the Labour candidate was quite good, and he took a lot of votes from the Tory candidate, and that's how Nige got in.
Yeah.
So that would really be chopping the head off the snake if he lost his seat. I mean, he wouldn't go because he could still be the leader, obviously, but he would lose a lot of credibility once it's proved that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the voters don't care. They don't seem to. I think 5 million is such a sort of Disney number that they just don't really think about it. I know that he wasn't scared about his security because I spoke to him before the election. I went on his show when we did the demo, and I was there with the young lad who works for us. And he came out of the studio with us, chat. I mean, he's very easy to chat to, you know, chatting. And we asked him about Donald Trump and all the rest of it. Anyway, he stood outside on the street smoking a fag. Now, this is not a man who was concerned about his security. I mean, it was dark, it was late, it was winter, and you know, if he was scared,
that's arguably his perfect habitat, though, isn't it? It's like vampires. Yeah,
but he's saying he needed the 5 million because he was the most insecure person, and it had nothing to do with him coming in to be leader and stand for office. So you know,
that doesn't make any sense. It's not the problem that you needed the money. That's fine. You just need to tell the government that you've got the money. That was the problem, and he's twisted the media to make in his. I mean, you know, it's intelligent campaigning, but the point is, like, he's twisted it and they're asking the wrong question. It's not a problem that you have 5 million. You just need to tell us about it, and you point blank refuse to tell. It was only because I mean, it got worse in one interview with Beth Rigby again, because he then admitted that he kept it a secret.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, why there was no need no one gave a shit. No one gave a shit.
That's 10 semi-detached houses around here in the northeast. Sorry, 20 houses. That is 20 semi-detached houses.
But then the little fucker,
it would have come at him. He claims that the information was illegally discovered. Somebody hacked or something, rather. He's making out, but that's irrelevant. The point is that something happened to change Nigel's mind about standing for office. When he spoke to me, he said, "I'm enjoying my life. I've got no pressure. I mean, he didn't have to worry about anything. I'm earning
5
good
million
money,
reasons.
blah, blah, blah.
5 million reasons.
And something changed. And yes, there were 5 million reasons why, I'm sure. But he's saying it's because he needed security. And I'm saying he was not a man who was worried about his security. In fact, there is a clip from GB News interview, which I tweeted yesterday, which says that his biggest fear was standing, getting 5 million votes and only 3 MPs. Well, he got just under 5. I think he got 4.1 million votes, and he got, was it 3 or 4 MPs? So actually, his biggest fear really was realised, apart from he was elected into Parliament to cause trouble.
Did you see the Conservatives' attack ad on it, where they pulled up the Crowder Report interview he had, where he said there's no money in politics unless you're crooked?
Yeah.
But then you said the 5 million. I'll bring this in because there was another thing to bring in. You said 5 million. He's telling young people to be on £10 an hour.
Yeah.
Like, as if that's good enough. So it's all right for him to take 5 million, but you should be on a lower wage.
Yeah.
It's just...
What you've got to remember about tribalism, they think the connection with Nige for people is that he says everything is because of foreigners, and they like agreeing with that simple solution. The reason everything's bad, Enoch Power's right, we need to send them all home, right? And so then they feel that he's their team, he's their football team, and so they're attached to him. And then the cognitive dissonance means that they don't hear anything else because they want to believe in that. And that's what you've got with Donald Trump, and that's what you've got with Nigel Farage. And it is true that people on the left have it too, which is why when Labour are in power, there is this sort of awkwardness of like, oh, I don't know if I can say that because they're my team, and I'm a bit ashamed that they're doing that, but I'm gonna excuse it. Whereas I actually see political parties as vehicles. I don't see them as anything to buy my loyalty, because I keep an eye on them.
I don't. I think the only parties I've never voted for are Conservative and Reform, but I've floated depending on, I mean, you've got to because of tactical voting. But then But then there were a couple of other things. Zia Youssef was on Newsnight and got hounded 7 times to answer whether or not Nigel took other money. And there's an important point behind that. Nigel's whole gambit is that he's a person of the people, right? But if he looks like he's been taking millions upon millions, that starts to erode that little fantasy. He just looks like everyone else. But then I think there are other things, like you mentioned earlier that he took on the Conservatives. Well, apparently it was because it looked like he had a lack of experience and a lack of competence within the party. I mean, the irony being that those are some of the most incompetent Tories that ever existed. Surprised he didn't take on Helen Whately in terms of the incompetence. You had what? Suella Braverman, Jenrick, Lee Anderson. I mean, he was deputy leader of the Conservative Party at one stage, wasn't he?
Yep.
No. It's not like he was picking like
chair or something.
Deputy chair.
Yeah,
deputy chair.
Yeah,
it's not like these people are like the creme to the creme.
He used to be Labour, you know, Leanderthal.
Yeah,
he was a Labour councillor. Yeah.
Too extreme.
But Farage is in it for the money. Absolutely. Someone said, does Farage want to be PM? Yes, he does, in the same way that Boris Johnson wants to be PM and Trump wants to be president. In it for the money. They know that they can relax regulation and they'll get loads of money from their donors for doing so. All the dark money that's flowing into these people's pockets. Trump has made more money in 1 year of being president than he made in his entire lifetime of being a so-called businessman. He's swelled his family fortunes to over $10 billion now. That's not just him. That's also his daughters, his sons, his wife, everyone.
But that's what's wrong with our system. That I'm not saying all MPs are like this, but unfortunately, we don't pay them enough money. And so you're not getting the quality of person. And as a result, you get people coming in who just see it as, I'll say what people want to hear and I'll take the buns.
Well, I think that one thing that we need to do really is to stop any kind of other money coming into these people, whether it's a donation or jobs on the side, doing cameos, selling gold, or whatever else Nigel Farage does to make millions every year.
It's an odd one because 66k to the average person would be a huge amount. Then if you get the other positions within government, you go up to about 100, 120, don't you? And the Prime Minister alone is on 120 before you take on all the add-ons.
Well, look, the leaders.
But then, you know, that's what a footballer earns in a week.
CEOs are on 250,000. It's ridiculous.
Councillors aren't paid. Councillors just get
Councillors aren't even paid.
Yeah,
it's so mind-boggling.
A bunch of refuckers have already fucking resigned, haven't they?
Not a full-time wage. The councillors aren't paid a full-time wage.
They don't work full-time. They only have to do a few hours. I mean, some of them work more, but it isn't a full-time job. But they do get
some of them haven't turned up for a single meeting at the council.
Well, if they don't turn up,
I would rather they have
period, they get decent.
But I'd rather they have a full-time position and just focus on fixing the area that they're in charge.
But look, the politicians.
I think that's just ridiculous to have.
You're not understanding it. The politicians don't do the work. They make the decisions. The civil servants do the work. So they're not there making things happen. They have to listen to the evidence that is taken and the facts that are brought by the civil servants and make a decision on, so a planning decision. All of the civil servants will do all of the work that's required, and then the councillors have to turn up and vote on that and listen to the evidence. They have an oral hearing.
But then they're doing a 9-to-5 job. If you got kids as well, then you're going off into doing the council. I don't believe you're going to make good decisions. You can't just tell me that it's like you make a decision. Got to go off and do the research and make sure it's implemented correctly and listen to the local people about what the actual issues are. I don't believe that's happening with it. I've never seen a councillor walking around town talking to people. I've never in my life knocking on doors, doing they might have the odd meeting here and there, but it's not enough. I don't think it's good enough.
Look, I've sat, I've been parish councillor, so I don't agree with you. I mean, my local councillor always came to the parish council. The parish councillors are not paid.
Yeah.
The county councillors are. And he turned up to the meetings, but you have to get involved. You can't just think that they're going to turn, they do turn up at your door when it's voting time. But go to the council and watch what they're doing. Go and speak to them. Go and watch something happen in the council to understand how it works. I'm not saying it can't be improved. I'm not saying it's perfect. But most of the problems that we've got with local government is to do with austerity, and that all of the funding has been pulled. And
then
that decision.
But you could then argue that's part of the reason why people don't turn up, is because we've still got this situation with austerity. It's put people off governance. It's put people off being able to attend. Most people, what is it, 33% only have like 0 to 250 quid in their bank account? That's it. That means most people are going to be doing 2 jobs alone. Then you're going to go down the council.
I listened to a presentation by Paul Johnson at the NFU conference last year, and he told everybody that we couldn't afford the welfare state anymore. And this is where, for me, there's 2 positions. You're either pro-privatisation of everything or you're pro-welfare state. And I am absolutely on that side of the welfare state. I was brought up believing in it, and I understand what it was like before we had it, because my grandfather told me what it was like. And so he said we can't afford it. And that we're overspending this much. The austerity arguments come through. So what we need to do is pull it all down and rebuild it with private capital. And that is the decision that was made by Keir Starmer in sitting with BlackRock. There's pictures of him. They're smiling away. And it's kind of like, OK, well, we'll just crash everything and then we'll let BlackRock buy everything up. And that is my worst nightmare. That is a trap. We're in a well and we'll never get out of it without a revolution.
I think there's something to be said about that. I am aware that, Graham, you're going to have to disappear very short.
No, it's okay. I can just start my show later. It's live. It's all right. Half my audience are watching this anyway, so hi.
We'll just switch onto your channel and carry on, because you talk about it all day.
Well, in which case, can we lead on to Scotland a little bit, and then we can come back a bit onto the local elections and the ramifications. But I'm keen to what were your thoughts about the Scottish? I was asking you the question, Graham. What did you think of the Scottish?
Well, nothing much has changed, has it? The SNP, biggest party, again, like it has been every year since 1999. And they'll go in with the Greens.
With the Greens. Independence call, though?
Well, I mean, I was watching Derry Girls last night, and I was struck by the fact that when they had the referendum on the Good Friday Agreement, it was 71%. And it makes me think that you've got Gibraltar deciding on a referendum whether they want to stay British or not. It's 99%. The Falkland Islands, 99%. Mayotte, little French island halfway between Africa mainland and Madagascar, they were asked if they wanted to be independent or they wanted to stay with France. 99% stay with France. When Norway voted to leave, what was it, Denmark? 110 years ago, whenever it was, that was like 99% as well. And my worry is that I even to go back into the EU, which I desperately want to do, I think that if we're going to be sensible about referendums, it's got to be more than 50%, because you're setting stuff up for neighbour to turn against neighbour, friend to turn against friend. And I think it's got to be overwhelming. You've got to get all sides on board. And what they did in the Good Friday Agreement, they managed to get the unionists to vote for it. If it had just been the Catholics who voted for it and none of the Protestants did, it wouldn't have got through.
See, the problem I see with that is you've already set the precedent of it being majority wins with the Brexit referendum. So people are just going to go, that doesn't seem fair. Why? Yeah, and I see that being a fundamental problem, because it's now been set as a principle. Same with Scotland leaving. I hear what you're saying, but I'm just going, that ship has sailed. I can't see how you're going to get around that. I'm also curious as to why, again, reform have grown within Scotland. I think that is curious, to say the least.
It's
because everyone just sees them the same as Conservatives.
It's a protest vote, and I don't believe there's a big difference between council elections and general elections. It's massive. Council elections can really be swung by individual candidates who actually get up off their arse and knock on doors and put leaflets through, which is exactly what the Lib Dems do. And in fact, Reform have copied that, and they've had so much money. I mean, in these by-elections, apparently they've been flooding the local area with their propaganda, and they didn't win those by-elections. So, and I know, we all worked on the tactical voting last time. That will come into play massively in a general election if we've still got first past the post.
People hate Farage as much as like 22% really like him. well over 50% absolutely hate him and,
It's over
and
60.
will vote any other party but Reform to keep him out. And
It's
that's
over
our
60.
secret weapon. So I'm a little bit more relaxed about.
I put a
people doing
video
well.
up on our Facebook page of Farage talking about hormone-fed beef and chicken, chlorinated chicken. And I can't tell you how many disparaging, hateful comments I got on there. It went absolutely viral because the energy to push against Farage is so strong, much stronger than support for him. So there's no doubt that they won't do so. And that's why I think he's probably very disappointed with the result. And especially as they didn't push on the 5 million bung really until after the result. So I'm not. I think the fear of reform was really Morgan McSweeney's plan, that he wanted to sort of get people energised to go into the, we only have to vote. We've got no choice. We've got to vote this one against that one. But it's Zach Polanski's that's upset the and Plaid Cymru, who've upset the apple cart. And so, yeah, they didn't anticipate that would happen. So the real news of this election is Plaid Cymru and the Greens. And they have done their best in the last couple of weeks to try and annihilate poor old Zach, including calling him an anti-Semite when he is Jewish.
It's insane. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and Nigel Farage, who made jokes about the Holocaust, is calling Zach Polanski.
I know, it's unbelievable.
What?
He called Barack Obama that thing. And then he made out that no one would vote for Kamala Harris because she's African. Those are the words he used. Those are the fucking words. And then you got people going over to Reform who are like, yeah, that's great. That works for me. Oh, Nigel's not a racist. Can you name one thing that Nigel said that's racist? Well, there's two. He called Obama that thing. And yet, whenever he talks about Donald Trump, it's of the highest priority. We've got a super chat. Do the hosts know 49% want English independence in a poll? Do you think they need a vote on that? Graham, what do you think?
English independent? No. I feel like it would be quite, it'd be like Brexit all over again. And this is the thing, like, I do want us to move back into the EU, absolutely. But I do understand it's going to be a bloody process because we've got to get people on board. And there's a horrible side to all this is most of the people who support Brexit and will support Brexit till they die are dying. Not all of them, but, quite a number of them.
A lot have died. No, the numbers have been calculated. Well over 5 million have died.
And if we want to live in a democracy and have a government that kind of reflects the nation, I think it's the nation that's got to push for us to rejoin the EU. And again, I think for Scotland and Wales, I think it's those countries that need to push for independence. The people need to do it. I don't think they can be driven to it by
You can't do it with first past the post, though, Graham. Look, referendum.
No, I agree that we should have a referendum at the end of the day, but I don't know. I feel like the groundswell of support for that. You look at it, Welsh independence. I don't think it's ever gone a yes above 35%, something like that.
I will fact check.
Okay.
No, it's never been seen as they've always in Wales. They've always been very much controlled by Labour, but this is why so much has changed. And even my family. I mean, my aunt, who is in fact Irish originally, has always been a Labour voter, and she voted Remain, and she got fed up with Labour in Wales because of the mess, and she is, she voted Plaid Cymru and she wants independence now, had enough of English rule. So I think there is change happening. Yeah, I think change is happening a bit quickly.
Oh, yeah. I don't disagree. I think there is.
But I mean, that's what I'm scared of. I don't know if that's the answer, because if you can leave the UK and as the devolved nations join together as an entity and join the European Union, that's a huge. They are much better off. I'm much better off, even living in England as a Welsh person, to have that reality. My passport would be restored and I will have freedom of movement back. And I will be much happier for my country to be in there. But before Brexit, I didn't have feelings of so much nationalism. But now I really do feel more Welsh than ever, I think, because of Brexit. So I can say that that's probably how a lot of people that live in the Celtic nations feel.
But I think the numbers are, just to help you out with that, I've only got up until 2020, so 27%, around 27% in 2020, reached a peak of 36 in 24, and sort of stuck between 36 and 34% since.
I said 35%, and that's exactly between 36 and 34. Yes.
Yeah. Institute of
Back on the quiz team. Yay.
Back on the quiz.
But ultimately, referendums don't make decisions in a parliamentary democracy. So ultimately, actually, by getting in a majority, Plaid Cymru, and not a majority, but close to a majority, means that will build. Because eventually those arguments will be made to people, as in, we can do this, we can do that. And in Wales, for sure, there is a big understanding that Brexit has been a disaster. And I think that if I was Prime Minister, I would absolutely now be saying, actually, levelling with the country, we really either go with America or we go with Europe. And we have to make a decision and set it out clearly so people can make a proper decision. And that is how you keep the union together. And that you give people a real vote instead of the joke that we had 10 years ago on what could happen. And the same with Brexit. The referendum that you make now, we wouldn't know what the deal would be, but we would try and get this, we try and get that. But do you want to go with Europe or do you want to go with America? And that was always the decision on Brexit. It was just missold, and they missold it because they never would have got support for what Brexit is. And we're still in that place. And the only way we are going to stop it in terms of people's minds is to have another vote. And, it needs to be settled one way or the other.
Do you think it would be settled if there was a second vote and it was still
looking
stay
at
out?
the polls, because actually the momentum for change, which is what the Brexit vote was, is it was really a punch in the face at David Cameron. That people fed up with first past the post and minority governments getting in with 40%. It's never been democratic, has it? So I think that now the polls are showing the momentum is with the rejoin. Even in the Times article today, it's at 75%, which is a right-wing establishment newspaper. 75% of Times readers want to rejoin. The last I looked, it was on 12,000. So I do believe the momentum is with rejoin, but I think what they're doing is they're Svengali on everyone and making you think that it's too hard because of this and because of that. It isn't too hard, and Europe have been clear time and time again. In fact, I spoke to a diplomat out in France last year who absolutely said they believed that Starmer was going 2 years ago, was going to be, he'd come to the table and get this through, but he hasn't done that. He's come into power and decided to go with Donald Trump, and you know that because he put Mandelson in office.
Want to hear something? A little bit of gossip, actually. So I was at a vote in London. I'm not going to say where, and we had this incident with this young man.
You just said in London.
In London, yeah, but
I will find you.
I can say, choosing my words very carefully here, there was an approach made by someone from Labour with a question to the Rejoin party, because the voting numbers are so narrow at the moment under first past the post. Would we consider stepping down if they put forward the proposal of a customs union?
It's not enough. The customs union won't make any difference. It's got to be single market.
But they're
Graham,
also
what do you think of that?
They're also going for targeted single market access for things like pharmaceuticals.
Can't get at that's cherry picking, Graham. Cherry picking.
Can't. They've already been discussing.
They can discuss. The EU have said they hate the Swiss deal. They hate it. It's a nightmare.
Which one?
All of them. Like
There's like 174 different deals that Switzerland have got it.
That's the problem, is that they're always having to renegotiate different parts of that deal. It'd be easier if they just joined the EU instead of cherry picking, which is why they're hesitant to do it with us. But also because they're going to they'll have seen what's happened in the local elections, as well as the 2 national elections with Scotland and Wales, and gone, reform are on the rise. Now, I think all of us can agree, Nigel's got foot and mouth disease, and therefore that number will probably go down with time. But it's also not a majority. You only got, what, 24% of any vote?
I get that, Alex, but people say, oh, the EU won't want us back, which I don't agree with. I think the EU
I don't agree with that either.
Negotiate with us to, bring us back in. But I don't think they'll take us back until it's a settled question. Because they, imagine if Starmer turned up tomorrow and said, listen, I'm really unpopular, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rejoin the EU tomorrow. I'll be like, yay, great, cool. But don't forget, if Nigel Farage gets in 2029 into Parliament, I mean, he could do. He's going to have enough money to do it. He's going to be funded by all the billionaires in the world who are just, going to pump money into. You can see how much 22 million, that he got his party and himself over the last couple of years. That did quite well in the locals, didn't it? People got 4 leaflets from the refuckers and none from anywhere else.
The truth
that whole thing with Zia Youssef refusing to answer if he got more money was fascinating. And he said it 7 times. He denied it. He just wouldn't answer the question.
Yeah, he wouldn't answer the question.
Does that mean the reporters know there's other money and they're trying to catch him out, or does he not know?
The point.
I mean, I think that's going to be damaging. If the reporter,
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. There's going to be things that they're going to mess up, and but they are funded by these, shady billionaires from around the world who make their money through cryptocurrency and through laundering Russian blood money. But what I'm saying is, whether it's Welsh independence, Scottish independence, reunification of Ireland, us rejoining the EU, I feel like for any of those things to happen, we need not just a 50-50 majority, just about maybe. Because don't forget, the polls before the 2016 election were like, fraudulendum, were saying, oh yeah, Remain will win. Remain will win. It'll be 60-40. Yeah, Remain will win. And then it was a big shock when they didn't. And what I'm saying is that we need to have the conversations. We need to get people on board, and also this is the dark side of it. We need to wait for a few more people to die.
I don't think
that. But I get what you're saying.
I hate saying that.
There isn't time. We really are at a crossroads. It's one or the other. And these deals are here now. And the more that we diverge, the harder it will be to ever change it. So I think that's why I think they're blocking Andy Burnham, because I think Andy probably would come in with a clear programme for rejoin. And what happened with the Brexit referendum, actually, in my view, Cameron wasn't a really strong Remainer. He was definitely quite Eurosceptic, and so there wasn't leadership on the Remain side. Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't stand on a platform with her. It was a mess, and as we know, the funding. In fact, the court has ruled that it was corrupt. It just couldn't be.
7 million, wasn't it, from Aaron Banks, and no one knows where it came from.
It couldn't be vitiated because it was advisory. So the mad thing is, it's like I say, Brexit is like Medusa. The vote itself is like Medusa came through and set everything and turned everyone to stone, democracy to stone, with a magical thing that are in people's heads going, oh, what about this and what about that, and oh, I don't want to go back to. It's actually quite simple for it to be reset. A prime minister has an awful lot of power, particularly with a big majority. And they really need to go, okay, I want to go back into Europe. I'm going to change the voting system that gets rid of Farage, and we're going to start the process, and we will timetable for a vote when it's convenient. Just look at what they're doing in Iceland. They've brought their vote forward. They are determined now to join the European Union. So if a government wanted to join the European Union, that is what would happen. And that's what I hoped Starmer would do. But he didn't. He determinedly decided to go with Donald Trump. And that's why that's why he lost my support.
We got a super chat. One cannot simply join the EU single market.
or walk into Mordor.
Or walk.
No, the deals that Switzerland have, and you might say that you don't like them, but they still go through with them because it's worth their while to have these deals in place because Switzerland's a wealthy country. and it's slap bang in the middle of the EU. So I'm more thinking like, instead of, if I was, I'm just thinking what I would do as a pro-European, stalwart bloody Remainer. If I was in charge right now, I would not be pushing to rejoin the EU now. I would be making incremental steps towards more integration, standardization, Erasmus, Horizon, which they're doing. Also bringing in areas, having a customs union, maybe not the customs union, but a customs union. And then, looking at parts of the single market that, sectors of it that we're happy to negotiate, and they're happy to negotiate with us, and then go into the 2029 election, because that would be the cheat code. You get rid of Starmer because he's bloody useless. Get Andy Burnham in, who is untarnished by the current record of the lot in on the front bench at the moment. Get him in and say, in the next, if you vote for us, we're going to have a referendum to go back into the EU, and have enough steps on the way to that to make that a reality. But I do think it's an incremental process.
That argument is an argument that only works domestically. It doesn't work in Europe. And also for business as well. They have to know what is happening. So if there was a commitment to say, yes, we want to the government can say and give a message, we want to join the single market. And the complexity of how that happens in the negotiations. And that is a clear message to Europe that actually we're going to stop these deals with America, and we're going to go with you. And business will know that actually that's a workable path. The problem we've got with the SPS agreement, and as a business person that sells food, that you can't just change it overnight. It's a very complicated thing, particularly if the processes, labeling, blah blah blah. So that commitment would give business a clear sign that's going to happen. With the SPS agreement, it is a quagmire, and it will take years to sort out, because we don't have any control of our borders for goods coming in. And so to actually achieve the SPS agreement, you might agree a deal by next year with Europe, say, yes, we'll do this. But it took Switzerland 10 years to implement the SPS agreement, and they've only got 2 land borders with Europe. We've got a very complicated system with, deep sea ports with foods coming in from around the world, and also the Northern Ireland situation and various ports connecting with Europe. So to get that implemented means a huge amount of investment. So as soon as I understood the SPS agreement and what needed to be done, I realized that actually what Starmer has done is promise something which is really undeliverable, to really placate Remainers into thinking that that is a sensible thing to do. And it's actually then underneath what he's doing is connecting us to America. And interestingly, in the EU, they are now looking at making changes on genetic engineering, and that whilst I'm not wholly opposed to GE, there are some good sides of it. But the biggest downside of GE is that it gives more power to corporations to control the seeds and have more power over everybody. But Europe are already softening on that. So in some ways, this sort of blackmail situation of Brexit Britain, Donald Trump, tariffs is making the EU move, but that in itself is dangerous as well, because if the EU breaks up, as America would like to happen, that leaves us in a very dangerous place, as history tells us. So I'm all for actually stopping this Brexit nightmare and going with, and if they wanted Andy Burnham in, we wouldn't be having what we're having now. And John McDonnell's already come out and spoken out against Catherine West. There is a push to get West Streeting into number 10, and that would just be continuity Starmer with a different spokesperson.
More Blue Labour. We've got another super chat from Viper Scott. Thank you. Can the UK not join or have a free trade agreement with the EU if the UK can't rejoin right now? Well, we've got a trade agreement. It's just that it's limited.
Non-tariff barriers. That's the big
and issue, paperwork. Tons of paperwork.
Lots and lots of paperwork. As I experienced firsthand when I went over to Luxembourg with Kieran, the van driver, a few years ago. It's ridiculous. Like, we couldn't.
Wait, is that the guy who was on LBC that said he couldn't get into? He gave up his business. Is that the one?
No. I think that's Paolo who had his seed business. Maybe.
No, there was some bloke that rang up LBC, I think, spoke to Farage and explained
Yeah,
how
that
it
was
was a
that would have
night.
been Kieran, the van driver. Like
That,
how difficult it
you
was going
know
to be
him.
to get. Yeah, yeah. Kieran was one of the original three blokes in the pub. We went
Yeah.
to
Wow. I always
Luxembourg
wondered who he
together a few
was.
years ago to see what the new system was like, and we were ready to go through the Channel Tunnel in the van, and we didn't get the we had to get like an email that had a code on it, and we didn't get the code in time. Had to park the van somewhere secure for the night and find somewhere to sleep. And if you think about that times a million, that's what's happening now with getting stuff in and out from Europe. From the
And then you got the
mainland,
fingerprint scanning, facial
mainland Europe.
scanning now needs to be done.
Yeah, it's crazy. But Liz, what is it that you would, if you were in charge right now, would you just be like, "That's it, we're going to rejoin tomorrow"? Is that what you'd do, or would you? How would you play it? Because you say, "Oh, they've had a deal with America," and like I'm thinking, well, what else are they supposed to do? The Tories had a scorched earth policy with Europe. It wasn't just pulling out the EU. We pulled out of Euratom, we pulled out of Erasmus, we pulled out of Horizon. Mike Galsworthy did a big piece about all the different European things we pulled out of.
You've got to see the difference between political messaging and political decisions and negotiations that happen, under the radar. So what ought to have happened, what I was looking for, was that Keir Starmer went to Brussels and said, yes, actually, we want to get back in the single market and, we want to rejoin. And that means a step-by-step. It is a step-by-step, but it means embracing the single market and freedom of movement and everything else. And then you manage the political messaging around that in a step-by-step. The political message has to be step-by-step. The actual process of rejoining needs to be a decision made by a prime minister. And he should have made that decision as he came into office. And then that would have slowly gone out throughout business, and optimism would have returned and investment would have returned. And when we joined the EU in 1971, when the sort of process began, it took 10 years for to get us to a place of agreeing to go in politically to Europe. But when you look at what happened to the economy, from the moment we committed to joining the EU and it was accepted, then the economy started to take off because money started to come in because of stability. And that's really what happened with Brexit. The uncertainty in 2016 saw investment contract and everybody go into sort of, into a panic. So that's where we are now in terms of Blue Labour wants to continue power. If West Streeting continues, nothing will change, I'm afraid, and we'll have more of the same.
No one wants, even I don't even think West Streeting wants West Streeting. He's rather unpopular. To go back to what Labour said in the last election campaign, they didn't say they were going to bring us closer to Europe. In fact, they came up with these ridiculous red lines. But in the last few months, because of Trump's erraticness, and just like you say, Liz, like companies, businesses, they can't. Farmers, they cannot live in an uncertain future. They need to know what's going to be happening to our economy and what the rules are going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, so they can plan for the long term. And we've not had that since the Brexit vote, and that's why inward investment has gone off a cliff. We're talking about the trillions of pounds that we've lost because we left the EU. And if you think about 100 billion per year less for the exchequer since 2016, because that's the way the economy's gone down.
It's 10 years.
That's 10 years.
Things are really dire because of Trump's Iran war, and people are not. Again, I see this because we always have to look ahead. We're always having to plan. Farmers are buying their products for next year now, or they should be, and we have got up to 70% inflation for input costs, and that means that a lot of farmers are not planting here. In Europe, they've given them money to get round this inflation. We've got nothing here. We pulled the plug on any responsibility to the government to feed Britain, and this is what scares the pants off me. In that they are assuming we'll always be able to import food. Now, we will always be able to import food if there is going to be, there is going to be a food crisis across the world. There's going to be famine. We're going to see it unfold over the next decade. And because of Trump's decision to do this in Iran. And we are particularly exposed. We are the most exposed Western country, developed nation. because we import so much. So there really should be an urgent move to protect our food. In fact, I wrote to Gordon Brown yesterday about this because they're saying we need to remilitarize. Well, you can't remilitarize without food. It's as simple as that. So there needs to be an urgent look at food, but everybody thinks it's sort of like, oh, not farming again, it's boring. It's kind of like, I can tell you now, when you get into the supermarket and those shelves are bare, you will be thinking back to what I'm telling you now, especially if the prices are, a pack of butter is £20, then and that is potentially what we're looking at. And there are many experts that agree with me that we really are in a dire situation and government should be around. But the problem we've got with a lot of the Labour MPs is they don't understand farming. They think that we'll always be able to continue to rely on the markets. They listen to the supermarkets who think, well, at the moment, it's okay. We're having calves now that don't go into the market for 3 years. So we have to look forward. So I know I'm here with my husband saying, do we buy our fertilizer for next year? And it's a stupid price. Will we get it? What do we do? We've got to plan what we're doing next year now. And we're already delaying those decisions. And many, many farms have decided not to drill here in this country. And that will be replicated across the world, but it'll be worse here because of Brexit. And the same is happening in Europe. The same is happening everywhere. And what you will see is a protection of export of food. And in India, it'll probably begin there. And then we will likely see the ramping up of war, because that wars actually tend to start about food.
This election has really made the UK politically unstable. You've got a prime minister that if another scandal comes out, goes. You've got a bunch of lunatics with reform on the rise. You've got a bunch of lunatics with restore on the rise. And you've arguably got 2 situations where maybe 3, maybe 4 parts of the UK separate. If we get to that stage where Scotland leaves, Wales leaves, even Gibraltar leaving, I think would cause quite a bit of a stir. That's probably a decade of redefining boundaries and organising ourselves and those new implementation of rules and regulations between the 2 counters taking place, or if England just has a vote to leave.
Well, Alex, just to pick you up on that, Gibraltar, is there a big movement for Gibraltar?
No, there's not Gibraltar.
No.
Cornwall, maybe?
If Gibraltar did want independence from the UK, because of the Treaty of Utrecht, or was it the treaty that's like 400 years old, that basis of our ownership of Gibraltar, Spain gets the first dibs. So they're not allowed to get independence. They'll have to hand themselves over to Spain, and then Spain would have to allow them to have an independence referendum, and then they'd have to get free from Spain. And you saw what happened with Barcelona in the last few years.
Yeah, and the Basque Country. The Basque Country are very independent-minded.
Catalonia,
and Catalonians. They're not going to let that happen. I did not know that. No. Wow. But so that's the end of that. Then they're never going to.
I've got to admit, I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't more of a groundswell of support for Scottish independence in the wake of Brexit, in the wake of Scotland being pulled out. It's still, it's about 50-50 still. I thought that it would be in the 60s, in the 70s by now.
Nobody really wants chaos. Everybody knows divorce is terrible and it damages everybody. And this is what gets me with the Brexit arguments. France is not doing very well. It's like Brexit had an impact across Europe. It had an impact across the world. Actually, it was a negative thing to do. So nobody really wants to do that, and I certainly didn't want to do that. But I've got to the stage of, if we're going to continue with the Blue Labour project, which in fact there's an article in the Times today by Ben Judah saying about rejoin, and he's just written a tweet here. This is what the argument is for the Blue Labour thing. He says a higher growth Brexit is possible, just not a Labour one. You can cut taxes by slashing public services and slash regulation US style. But flexible markets and more fossil fuels are incompatible with Angela Rayner's Employment Rights Act and Ed Miliband's Clean Power push. And this is the problem that we've got, that we have got a large part of the Labour Party who are, like me, pro-welfare state and which only exists or flourishes within the European Union, particularly because we've lost our energy security and food security. And then you've got this small number that believe that somehow we'll be able to do slashing of everything, neoliberalism, and think that that's okay. I mean, what happens to people if they don't have employment rights? Well, you know what happens. You end up with what they have in
Charles
America.
Dickens, Oliver Twist.
You end up with what you have in America. People die because they can't afford healthcare.
Yeah. Well, that's the future that Farage wants for this country.
Yeah.
But the issue that, a large part
as long as he makes money.
The sort of trailer camps in America, it's a big country. You don't see it in Britain. It's a very small country. So if you've got that sort of depravity, it is going to be horrific, and it's already there.
But you know what will happen when people see that? When they see that level of poverty, they'll blame the people who are poor, because they'll never ever seem to blame the state.
That's already happening.
Yeah,
that's been going on for years. We've had that, particularly with Thatcher getting rid of council houses. So it really is ideology at play here, and dangerous ideology. And it is what I call the T-Rexes, the corporations, who are the very super wealthy people who don't care about anyone but themselves, and they don't know or understand what it's like to have an ordinary life. And so they are the people that are making the decisions, and Brexit is to blame. I mean, before Brexit, there were problems of inequality because of first past the post, because we still have a legislature which has a king, queen in it, which means that we've got inequality, and that's part of our problem.
But also,
so I don't know how we get out of it. I really don't know. Apart from I can see it because of the food situation in particular. I can see real problems ahead because people don't sit around feeling hungry.
Part of the solution is got to be within government. There are a number of things they can do. So if you're going to run a country as an independent, one of the key things that you're going to have to do and realize is that you need to do as many things that stop people being able to manipulate you, like Trump has repeatedly done. So, for example, you'd want energy security. You want enough energy that you can supply your country, which we could have done, like at any point.
Leveson too, as well.
Yeah.
Social media brought under, control. Cryptocurrency. I mean, that is disgraceful that you could have a criminal-based exchange of finance around the world. Some of it laundering money for Russia's murderous regime, and some of that money that someone's making from allowing Russia to evade its sanctions is going into the pockets of Nigel Farage and his horrific, posh, neo-aristocratic friends.
And being cleaned through London. It's called Londongrad. It's not London, it's Londongrad. But no one ever talks about it.
Well, that's because property in this country is no longer seen as a necessity. It's an investment. And that's something where Britain has really fallen down in the last 30, 40 years. People have just invested in houses instead of businesses, individuals, talented people, good ideas, that they just want to invest in a house.
And then I'll add to that and go, not to pry too much, but how much of your pay packet goes on to rent? The average person is probably 50%?
Yeah.
Of their pay packet?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's like one of the highest in Europe, and it's because
paying someone else's mortgage as well. If you're paying your own mortgage, at least you're getting something for it at the end of the day. But you're paying someone else's mortgage.
The only way to reduce that is to build more houses.
Something to announce. Will Hutton has tweeted in the last hour: changing Prime Minister in mid-Parliament only works if there is a decisive break with what went before and the bravery to pursue big ideas. Yep. Rejoining the EU always made economic and strategic sense. Now it makes political sense. That's absolutely on the money.
Yeah.
The House of Britain idea is from his book, from the 90s, Will Hutton's book, that I had to study at university. True story.
That's very cool. What did you think about Gordon Brown coming back?
It's funny in a way, because you're like, oh, that really unpopular Prime Minister is coming in to help this really unpopular Prime Minister. But Gordon Brown was a very good Chancellor. And Britain did do very well. Those first 10 years of the Labour government from 97 to 2007, the size of our economy doubled in 10 years. And then it just flatlined, and it's been flatlining ever since. Like, we're here now, nearly 20 years later, and our economy hasn't really grown. And the big part of that, austerity, Brexit, the COVID response, Liz Truss's disastrous mini budget, and Labour being too bloody tentative.
And a lack of investment in infrastructure.
Yes.
Like this is a massive issue that no one talks about.
It is worthwhile looking back at the history of the Labour Party, I think. History always holds a lot of answers, but it was Harold Wilson who had the idea of the same as Norway, and he was forced out. I mean, apparently he was ill, but he was forced out. And a lot of political shenanigans, and they convinced the country that we couldn't afford anything. But actually that was really dishonest, because they knew that we'd won the lottery with oil and gas in the North Sea. And they actually and I think this is what goes on. You have certain people in power who are in, whether it's Labour or Conservatives, who are running a relay race. And under Callaghan, they ran down the mines. He started a lot of this. And this is the problem, is that the right wing are infecting the Labour Party. And so bad decisions, what I believe are bad decisions, because I think that this country is being forced. It's almost like our security blanket is the welfare state, and it's being forced from us under false pretenses, and that is what they want to happen. But the country doesn't want that to happen. The youngsters don't want that to happen. So it is going to cause, and it is causing, it's causing an absolute mistrust in politics, and it has to be replaced, because I don't think psychologically you can make us like America. We are not like Americans. And that is that, for me, that was the Brexit decision. Europe, I'm European, absolutely, to the center of my core. And I like Americans. I used to enjoy visiting America, but I do not relate to their system at all. Canada, more aligned with Canada, a lot more aligned with Canada, and they're more aligned with us. It was actually a very recent migration from Scotland in particular to Canada, and obviously from France. So they're much more aligned with our way of thinking. So that's where we are. And I will be absolutely devastated if Wes Treating ends up winning. I don't believe that, and I think there's all sorts of problems with Angela Rayner. It is Andy Burnham is the person. We all know that Andy Burnham is the person that will win that popular vote that and
also needed. Drag them to the left as well. And look, this isn't the new thing. You're saying you look at history. Every time Labour have got into power, they've become more right wing. Like instantly, as soon as they walk into number 10, they're like, okay, well, we were a bit idealistic about that. And one of the things about this, the manifesto that Labour ran on for this election, I mean, the 2024 election, it was all very piecemeal. It was all very don't upset the chickens in the coop, and you look at the way they didn't want to talk about Brexit at all during their campaign.
Yep,
it was very telling, but because they didn't want to fight that, because they knew they couldn't win against the financial might of the tabloids, the Faragists.
Well, there you go. You're back to is Leveson that is needed.
Yeah. And, absolutely, it's needed. But yeah, that seems really self-defeating for Labour not to do that. To be honest with you,
there's a recent documentary about Tony Blair, and I was never a big fan of Tony Blair, I have to say. In fact, in the Iraq War, I was absolutely. I mean, I was beyond enraged by that, because my view is we don't go in unless we're Europe, so we don't go in unless Europe all agrees on it. That was my view, and I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. But if you watch that documentary and what happened with Blair's rise and Brown, it is really, 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 it's really informative to watch him, and it's actually I'm surprised he allowed for it to go ahead. But John Smith was the leader. And he actually learned that John Smith had a health problem and a bad heart. And if you think John Smith was my friend, and he had a health problem, and he said, so what I decided to do, and I was waiting for what I did was recommend this heart specialist. He said, I started building my campaign for leadership, and actually really Brown was seen as the natural heir to leadership, Gordon Brown. And Tony Blair, instead of thinking, John Smith's ill and he might need some support, he decided to prepare for his death, which I thought was extraordinary, extraordinarily
Machiavellian?
well, yes. And he then had that big meeting with Murdoch. He met him on the yacht, and that decided the future. But in the first few years, it was really John Major's policies which actually sort of eked through. And it's interesting to hear John Major talk about the difference that his decision on the lottery made, which actually Labour benefited from, you know, especially in terms of getting progress in the Olympics. So yeah, it's fascinating to see how that sort of played out. But John Major is really part of the old post-war set mind. You know, he's more right-wing than me, but you know, he is more of a liberal than Tony Blair in many ways.
One nation conservatism, I guess, what it was. I mean, that doesn't really exist anymore in the Tory party, and the ones who don't think that the Tory party is extreme enough. This is the most extreme incarnation of the Tory party we've ever had. Thatcher wasn't this extreme. Thatcher wasn't this extreme, which is insane for me to say.
What did you think of Zach Polanski's treatment? Because you mentioned how the media had been sort of, you know, pushing Labour to the right. Obviously, Zach is far to the left of Labour.
I played the clip from Starship Troopers where he can read the alien's mind, and he says, "It's afraid! It's afraid!" And that's like, you know, slagging off Zach for just the most ridiculous things. But I think it really does represent the height of hypocrisy when the same media outlets that are going absolutely fucking bananas because Angela Rayner filled out a form incorrectly by accident, because, you know, Zach Polanski said something in a tweet in 2013 because Johnny Reynolds put something on his LinkedIn profile that wasn't quite accurate. Meanwhile, Farage gets £5 million by a guy who launders money for Vladimir Putin to get around sanctions. Crickets.
I didn't know that. That says so much. We were talking about it in the last episode, weren't we? Because I asked you and Chris about the gay bar that got firebombed, people inside. You guys both read the news regularly. You hadn't heard of it, which is insane. And that's a hate crime on another level. That's frightening. So yeah, going back to that, yeah, I think the media, I was surprised at the power of the media to be able to do that still. I thought social media really had started to eke and ebb away.
But social media is just amplifying what's in the traditional media, isn't it? Like, because there's fortunes, and
I used to work in advertising, so I can tell you, I worked in advertising in the 1980s and early 90s. A fortune is spent on research. A fortune. They know how people think, and they know what the subliminal messaging is so powerful, and they know how to manipulate people with messaging and how it works. So when I was at Saatchi's, the Sun it wasn't my client, but it was one of the accounts in Saatchi's at the time. So these things are, you know, and Saatchi's were absolutely intrinsic for the Conservative Party. So these things go on all the time. They know what to say to manipulate you. So I think in many ways, I'm able to look at it. I don't look at it and think, oh, that doesn't make sense. I look at what they're saying in the news, which is why I tend to read the Times every day. I go, what are they trying to do now? Why are they saying this? Who are they hoping to manipulate?
Yeah.
And where do they go forward? Because it's almost like being in a trap, in a mousetrap. It's mousetrap politics, and that is what's going on. And so they're going, okay, well so with Zach, they were quite happy for him to go, and then they got to this point and thought, okay, we'll do a load of stuff which has worked before. The anti-Semitism worked on getting to attack Jeremy Corbyn, and so all of these things are used to manipulate the herd as such. And we do it with our cows. We do the same thing. If you want them to come back in after they've been having a nice time in the fields for a TB test or whatever, then you have to have a game plan on how you get them through the gate. And that is what they do to us. So we definitely need Leveson too. The Independent is owned by Lebedev and the Standard. And Murdoch's press, and then now that this German person's taking over the Telegraph, who owns Politico as well, and we don't actually have, we don't really have an independent press. The Guardian is now no longer what it was. The Observer's no longer what it was. So yes, we have got independent press. We've got Carol Cadwallader and the Nerve.
Yes, we do. That was delightful to see. Sangeeta Muska was signed up as well this week to the Nerve. I was excited about that. And it was did someone take over the Guardian? Oh, and by the way, yes, Chris, we are live. We are live streaming right now.
The Observer was taken over by Tortoise Media.
And what are
the
they?
Guardian. They're a group that owned Tortoise. There was a magazine called The Tortoise, and
no apologies. I mean, like what,
I don't know.
Right,
I don't know, but that's why Cavell left.
Right.
That's why Cavell Codwalla left the Guardian and set up the Nerve with Cavell Vorderman and Stuart Lee.
Stuart Lee's on there.
Yeah, Stuart Lee's part of the Nerve. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Which is exciting,
That's
but
quite a group.
And I wish them well, and I hope that like Bylines is fantastic, but compared with the big boys, they just do not have the budget. These hideous people like the banjo player's father from Mumford and Sons, he owns GB News, he owns The Spectator, and he loses millions every year. He loses 50 million a year on GB News. It doesn't matter.
That's
money
Paul
to burn.
Marshall's son, you mean? Paul Marshall.
Paul Marshall, yeah. Paul Marshall's son was the banjo player from Mumford and Sons. Now he wants to put mines. He wants to put mines in the water between here and France, so we can blow up the migrants coming across in small boats.
Yeah, because that's the biggest trading. That's the second. Is it the second or the biggest trading route in the world? Yeah.
And that's,
he wants to put mines in it. Fucking genius.
That is
fucking genius.
Morris Glasson on Unheard, which is their platform, and in a podcast, said that we should start a war with France. He actually said that.
Would we do any good? The French military is pretty slick, from what I've
and they've got nuclear weapons, so there's that. But yeah, I can see Labour, and there's going to be an unpopular opinion or whatever you might think I'm doing. I can see Labour winning the next election, not by a lot, maybe just 2 seats or something. But if they change to Andy Burnham, but they've got to wait before they change to Andy Burnham. They can't have a different leader for a few months now, an interim leader, until Andy Burnham can come back as an MP and therefore come back as leader.
I think there's a very strong chance of seeing proportional representation come through, and I really hope that happens before the next election.
But they won't be able to do that because it's not in the manifesto. They won't have a
Doesn't
mandate
matter.
for it.
They'll be able to.
They can do
it,
but they have to get the Lords on side.
They've already made progress in the Labour Party with lots of different votes on PR, so it would go through. They could get it through, but they'd have to work at it. Yeah, they'd have to back on now.
I don't think they're going to do it. Because the first past the post suits them. Unfortunately, I know it's ridiculous to us because we're like, but you're only in charge for 33 years out of every 100. Yeah, the Tories are in charge for the rest of the time, but from their point of view is, we only
even
need to get
Andrew
33%.
Neil last week was talking about the need for PR, and that's because they fear the rise of Polanski and the left.
Yeah,
that's what's causing it.
Yeah. So, super chat. You, the left, have refused to fight the alt-right on immigration question by not recognising colonisation by the UK as the cause of immigration.
Okay, well, I'm very happy to answer that. Look, we are an ageing population. I'm just in the baby boom generation. We're the biggest population. We're living longer than ever. So the reason that the population has grown in Britain predominantly is because of the baby boom generation living longer. My grandparents died in their 60s and early 70s. Now we've got people living well into their 90s and much longer. And we all had less children. So as a result, the birth rate has been declining.
I don't think that's quite what it's Ton Thon Frades. Thank you very much, by the way. Don't think that's quite what he's saying.
He's saying we've been colonised by immigrants.
No. Saying colonisation is the reason why. Yeah. Our colonisation of other countries is the reason why people come here.
Okay.
Which is the argument made
is
by
the cause.
Sathan Sangara in Empire World and Empire Land. I've got a copy of Empire World.
The British Empire colonisation of the world is definitely an attraction thing because of English. So a lot of the former British
we also impoverish these places.
But they want to come here because they speak English. I mean, in India, the second language is English. If you go to Africa, many countries speak English.
Yeah, but the reason why the people want to leave because they're poor has its roots in colonisation. Like when we first
that
went into India in the 1600s, under the East India Company, the area we know as India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, it was the richest area on the planet. It had so much in money, and when we left in 1947, it was one of the poorest.
Absolutely, the extraction was horrendous. Yeah,
I think it was 25% of the world GDP. 25% of the world's GDP was came from India, or what you would now call
Indian
India.
subcontinent. Yeah,
and I think when we left, it was 3 or 4%.
So and this is why we need more foreign aid. This is why we need development funding especially around the Commonwealth. There's 56
but hang on, I want to push back on that. I welcome immigration. We need it. This is why for public services we need it. So this whole thing of like we need to do stuff to stop immigrants. I welcome immigrants. Come to our country, help us run it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The whole fear-mongering around immigration, which is what it is a weapon they use to control us. They want you to blame immigrants or blame welfare benefit, claimants, all the rest of it, rather than actually blame the people who are responsible for what's going on. But we need immigration to run the country. And the biggest expense for the welfare state actually is the pension budget, because as I've said, the elderly, Asian, baby boom population are living longer, and it's causing all sorts of problems when you haven't got enough people working to fund that. And we've got the triple lock.
And it's not means tested like it is in Australia, so you can be a millionaire and still be getting 12 grand a year off the government.
But that doesn't. It costs more to actually. It's cheaper to use universalism than it is to sort of go, you can't have it because of this, and which is the winter fuel argument as well. So what you need is an amnesty to offer rich people to sort of an easy opt-out out of it.
Okay, you come back a bit more aggressive. When are you going to tell those schmucks they are responsible of what they are complaining about? Why do you speak
not complaining about immigration
English? Because you colonized them.
Yeah, we're not complaining about immigration. Seriously, not complaining about immigrants coming here.
But I'll push back just to clarify what they're saying. They're saying, why aren't we doing more to fight the alt-right on that issue, which was the original?
The alt-right don't care. The alt-right, they think the empire was a wonderful time of bread and roses, when actually the empire was a sickening act of vandalism around the world, in which Britain went around raping and pillaging literally every country pretty much every country that it could get a toehold in.
They didn't do it. Only did they starve them, actually. I mean, if you look at what happened in Ireland and in India, then there are some excellent BBC documentaries. Do go on there and look them up and watch them, and that's what really motivates me. It's not self-interest in being a farmer. I really care about people having enough food to eat.
The Irish population still hasn't recovered from the potato famine, or the Great Famine of the 1840s. Still hasn't recovered to this day. The Bengal famine hardly gets mentioned in the early 40s. And these crimes are things that the refuckers want to cover up. They don't want you learning about this stuff when you go to a stately home. They don't want you to know there's a statue of a guy in the middle of in the middle of Durham who literally spent millions back then, millions on his palatial manor, which is now a National Trust property in Northern Ireland, while giving about the equivalent of about £2.50 towards the famine relief fund in a place where he was Lord Londonderry.
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember this sort of rise of the English nationalism and exceptionalism really coming with the Falklands War. We'd gone through a really difficult time.
It was still, let's be clear, it was kicking around in the 1900s. Massive.
Oh yeah, no, but
Churchill was doing the same thing in the 40s.
No,
so
from a living, I'm talking about my lived experience.
Right.
It was a very depressed time. We had to go for a bailout from the IMF, and everybody was very, very poor, and it was really difficult. And we had, bin crisis, food shortages, we had it all. And then Thatcher came in, and she was seen as, that they were all saying she was going to sort everything out, and we had to make sacrifices. We have similar messages now. And she was doing really badly in the polls, and she wasn't actually, the country didn't like her, and she was really facing being ousted. And then the Falklands War happened. And honestly, the change overnight, I couldn't believe it. I was, sort of about 18, 19, and I couldn't believe I was sat there looking at the television and people were like, wow, we've still got an empire. Nobody had actually heard of the Falklands or knew anything about it. But everyone's sort of like, yeah, let's go get them. And this whole surge of sort of hope and like, this is amazing. And that is what saw her soar in the polls and deliver what we're living with today, which was to harness our oil and gas dividend and financialize it into a few hands. And the British people were left without the bonus of that. They were given scraps from the table in terms of go on the dole, we've taken your job. And that was an absolute pivotal time. But the undercurrent to that, the beginning of that, started with the ending of RPM, resale price maintenance.
I agree. I think that had a huge detrimental effect. I think we were all right though in the 90s. I mean, you didn't see English flags being carried around.
Just gotta get the door.
No worries. You didn't see English flags being carried around. It wasn't like nationalism was a fervor. I agree, it increased it, and that's probably part of the reason why we got the BNP and UKIP suddenly popping up as a sort of added response to that, with that generation coming through next, and then starting to have these same sort of vibes and feelings. I would say this. There's because again, going back to that point, they're saying, why haven't you done more? Well, I've written a book on it and pointed that out, but I'm not on the right, and the right seem to have a ton of money and influence. We've just talked about that with the papers. I will mention Media Storm and Matilda from Media Storm that did that Channel 4 documentary, which showed the process of people running away from war-torn areas and coming to the UK and how they do it. And you could see how once people started to realize and recognize what these people were going through and who they were, their attitudes were changing towards immigration. They weren't scared of them anymore.
Yeah.
Then I'd add, we've bombed the crap out of a lot of these countries. From a logical standpoint, if any of us were there being bombed and we know that the bombs are coming from the US or the UK, there's a good chance we'd leave that country and go to a safe spot. And one of the safest spots would more, you don't think so? If you're being bombed and shot at, or having
I'm shaking my head in disbelief of. I'm a citizen of nowhere. My family escaped the famine in Ireland and came over to the mainland. And on the other side of my family, they came from Eastern Germany because they're Jewish, and they arrived in the 1800s. So I am somebody, my DNA is hardwired to run, which is why when I looked at Brexit and I could see what was coming, I was hardwired to thinking, oh my God, this is a disaster. And on the day of the vote and the results, my husband woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I was like, oh my God, we need to leave. And I'm absolutely familiar with that feeling of chaos is coming, run. And I'm sure that I feel as if it's in my DNA, because I'm like, dangers ahead, run. And that is exactly what I'm aware of. And because I'm aware of the food situation, it is that frightens me the most.
So let's go back in history with that and support what you've said. We're all from Africa. That's the end of it. The DNA shows it.
Humans are a migratory species.
Yeah, we're a migratory species. You've just said it. Like eons. The problem is that we have these arguments. I don't hear a lot of them on TV, and I'll add this one. I thought about the other day when you're hearing Reform talk about migrants coming over, etc. What about tourists? How do you know those tourists coming over the border are safe? If you're going to go with these levels of logic, which I don't see people arguing over on TV, wouldn't you all Epstein's a tourist, right? Epstein was a tourist. He was the most prolific sex trafficker in the world, or one of the top ones. He's a tourist. Maxwell going over to the United States was initially a tourist. Melania Trump is a tourist to the United States till she got a visa. And I'm not hearing any. If you're going to go on these crazy ass thoughts about migrants being a danger, why aren't you bringing up the fact that tourists could also be a threat? Why are they not bringing up stuff like, and I've brought it up several times now with Reform and Restore in person, right? What about English people going over into the Welsh border and attacking women, or going over the Scottish border? Do you think we should
going to Dubai?
You're not listening to what I said to you. It's about manipulating people. Scapegoating. It's othering. It's what happened with the rise of the Nazis, they use the same things. It's actually it's ideology playing out, and they're trying to manipulate people by setting them against one another. So I can tell you now that the farming community is absolutely scapegoated. Not by everybody, but by a large community, and that comes back to history, going back to the feudal system, and people thinking that all of the people that farm are landed gentry when they're not. And that's all changed after the last two world wars. So in particular, well, and after the repeal of the Corn Laws. But it is about looking at it as a whole instead of thinking it's your fault. It's your. I mean, the person that's asking us the super chat is actually saying it's your fault. You on the left, you're to blame for this. Well,
No, I don't think they
that's
are.
what he. That's the second
think they're just
question.
They're
saying that-
demanding more reason as to why. And I mean, it sounds like manufactured fear, what you've just described there, Liz, not to plug my book too much this episode. I have to say we've got 2 more super chats, and Graham, we keep stalling on your...
I know, it's all right. I just keep pushing the time back that I start my show. It's fine, it's live. Half my audience are watching this anyway. Hi, everyone. So,
They'll be
Hi,
bored,
everyone.
you see.
We are live.
Do not worry. I will need to go and have some
Two more
breakfast
super
soon now. I'm
chats.
bloody starving.
It's lunchtime.
Graham, you tell us when we'll
Some
stop.
punch.
But we've
All
got 2 more super chats just before that happens.
Go on then.
Stop with the excuse of the medias. Look at Orban. Look at the communist countries. They got expelled despite controlling the media. Well, he didn't get expelled for 16 years. And the bloke that came in has just said, I can't ever remember, is it Peter, the new Prime Minister of Hungary?
Peter
Peter
Magyar.
something?
Magyar.
He said he wants stricter borders than Orban. Like, that's one of his big things.
He was in the same party as Orban.
And then the second super chat is, to be of the right, you don't have empathy, though. I mean, it seems to be quite clear. Trump doesn't have any empathy.
Well,
Melania didn't come out. Go on.
Elon Musk went on a podcast and said the biggest problem in the world at the moment is there's too much empathy.
Yeah.
When I would say the absolute opposite.
How would they react if Jesus was kicking around now? Like, I don't believe any of them who all claim to be Christian.
I don't know who Thon phrased you is arguing with, but I'm not arguing with any of the points about the reason why we get immigrants coming here is because not just the British Empire going around the world, but also the British Empire stealing everything from these countries and leaving them in a really bad state when they got independence. So much so that a lot of them are still on their knees. I'm not arguing against that. I'm not arguing against the fact that the media can be overcome. Of course they can. I don't know. I think
I am going to make
show.
a comment here about. I don't know if you read Boris Johnson's article last week in the Mail, celebrating the fact that Brexit was working with depopulation. It is the most fascinating thing to read.
We don't want depopulation because there's going to be no one to look after older people.
Boris Johnson's father is part of the Club of Rome and the Limits to Growth, and he has spent his lifetime, Sammy Johnson, working on depopulation. He's a famous interview with him. You can check it out. It's on The Guardian, 2012, where he announces that Britain can only support, he thinks, between 10 and 15 million, our carrying capacity, but he could live with 25 million. And Boris Johnson wrote an article as well, I think it was in the early 2000s, in the Telegraph, about overpopulation, that really is the problem of the world. And
there's the man with 7 kids.
He has 6 kids. Boris Johnson's got 9, maybe. We don't know.
No, probably 20. But it's Malthusianism. And in Oxford and in Eton, they still teach Thomas Malthus economics. And this is what we're living through. This is the thing where they turn around and say, actually, and this is where the empathy comes through, and it's the sort of Scrooge reality of, we can't afford to have all of you because there's too many of you. We're going to run out of resources, so only we can have this and you can't. And that is what's playing out right now. And look at how many of previous prime ministers have been at Oxford and at those elite institutions.
Are you deliberately poking the bear here? Like, what the fuck? To be fair, I went to Brooks. I had a load of mates that went to Oxford Uni. I was hanging out with them at the time. I felt.
Well, did they do PE?
I don't disagree that they taught it, but I think from what I've understood, you're taught that topic, and then you're there to sit, debate, and dissect how that works, and if it works, and if it can work. It's up to the individual. And I will agree with you. An inordinate number of world leaders and UK leaders have come out of. I think Christchurch College has had more prime ministers than Cambridge, which is not. That's just one of the colleges in Oxford, which is a nutty little fact. I'm sorry to say we've got 2 more super chats.
I speak with Ollie Fletcher about this, who went to a history graduate from Oxford, we're very, very aligned. He's a farmer as well, so we sort of get this. And he wrote an essay, I've read it, on Thomas Malthus, and his tutor actually said, because he argued that Malthus was wrong, and his tutor sort of said, well, I don't know about that. With climate change, he might be proved right. And that's scary.
Just explain who Thomas Malthus was for people who might not know.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
I'll do it. So he's a bloke in the Victorian era who said there's not going to be enough food because the population doubles every X many years and the amount of yield from a crop doesn't necessarily double, and we're all going to run out of food and we're all going to die. And that was used to allow for really horrible policies during the Victorian era to try and keep the population down. Same thing happened at Malthusian Mark II was austerity, which was based on one spreadsheet in which there was an error, which said that if you spend more than 90% of your GDP, then, or whatever it was, then your country's going to go down the pan economically. And that just wasn't true. And so they cut all this stuff for people in this country, made everyone who wasn't already rich poorer. And and it was horrible. They don't understand that when you give a rich person 100 quid, they put it into an offshore bank account, or they spend it on a Ferrari in another country, in their holiday home in
the money's taken out of the country.
Yeah, if you give £100 to someone who lives in a local community, they'll spend it in a local shop, which will then be used to pay for the wages, the people in the shop, to buy more stock. Then that stock and the wages will be spent on CDs, or it'll be sent on more in the factory, in the transport, the guy in the woman in the truck who's taking it there. So you have £100 put into the economy to someone who lives in the economy who doesn't have much, and that's 500 quid worth of input to our economy. Whereas you give it to a rich person, you give it to an oil oligarch, you give it to a tobacco baron, it disappears. It's gone. Mm-hmm. It's gone.
So, we've got 2 more super chats. Sorry,
ultimately,
Liz.
this is the
Liz,
point.
We've got 2 more super chats.
It's welfare state or oligarchy. These are the things. So they mix it up with culture wars about trans rights and all sorts of other things. Immigration, they use of that to muddy the waters. It's either you have a feudal system or you have a welfare system, and these are the 2 decisions. I come down on the welfare state every single time because I have an abundance of empathy, and I think that I don't want to live in a country where you have such disparity and suffering, and that sort of Charles Dickens reality is regressive beyond belief.
Yeah, weird evolutionary biology thinking, survival of the fittest, but it's actually survival of the capitalist, which is completely different. So thank you, Vicky Clee. I think we've got more super chats now. 4.
Oh no, I need to go to the loo in a minute.
Thank you, everyone. Vicky Clee, don't worry about Tom Thon. He's been saying the exact same question on every lefty, we're a lefty channel, for at least 4 years. Okay. Noted. And I will go, look, he's come again. Tom Thorne said, why are you giving in to the alt-right arguments? You colonize, therefore you have immigration, period. It's the same in France, Germany, the US.
I would argue against the US. They don't have immigration because of colonization. They have immigration because immigration is a great way of growing your economy.
I'd say
they took people in. They didn't necessarily have an empire in the same way that Britain or France or Germany did.
No, they did.
What, Liberia?
The whole of the US. Well, people were living there. They just turned up and pretend they didn't exist.
Yeah, but they're not coming from other countries.
That's an empire.
They're not coming from other countries to America because they were part of the American empire.
Yeah, but like Texas was a country at one stage.
I know,
Hawaii
and
was a
half
country.
of it was Mexican, but
Well, I would
the
say,
big
I
chunk
would
of it was
argue
French.
that the America has an empire. Mexico, Southern America, this is where most of their immigration came in and worked illegally, and the economy boomed because of it. But it's a great political weapon to get everyone angry about immigrants coming in and being.
But I've got no problem with immigrants like you, Liz. I've got no problem with people coming
Yeah,
from all over
Liz,
the
No,
you're
world.
I
in.
don't. But the
to
people
the
that
UK.
problem.
the people that think we should control our borders are really eating like a fish eating the bait from a fisherman. It is that. As I've tried to explain to you, it's in terms of using your feelings, so you're distracted away from actually looking at the two questions that I gave you. Do you want an oligarchy or do you want a welfare state? Do you want a cohesive community position or country, or do you want to have a top-down few, as they have in Russia, benefiting and everybody else is an ant? So I absolutely reject that reality.
Just to come
And
back
welcome
to
immigration.
urbane legends saying Philippines. Yeah, so Philippines, Palau, the obviously the Marshall Islands were American, but now they're independent. Panama is still effectively an American colony. They use the US dollar there. A lot of the mentality there. They have the big fuck off cars because that's. But what I was meant by that is that the extent of what we would call an American empire outside of the borders of modern America was nowhere near the scale of the Portuguese, the French, the Spanish, the German, even the Dutch, even the Belgian Empire. Jesus. So yeah, there are lots of factors in this. But
the dollar runs the world.
No one's arguing with you, Tonton. Yeah, but I think that try and make that argument to a right wing will make no difference. They just don't like immigrants. They don't care why people are coming here, whether it's because of empire or because they're fleeing war or because they're fleeing whatever. They don't care. They just don't want them here. They don't want people who are.
It's Afghan.
I want to ask that type of person, do they believe in dinosaurs? I'm really curious if they actually believe that. Do they think the Earth is like, flat?
Probably.
Like, do they think the blue sky is actually an ocean? Like, I'm curious to know, like, what they actually do believe at what level of science. Do they think putting mud over their eyes with spit will cure blindness? I'm really curious about these, like, really interesting questions.
I think they probably don't
seem
think
to be
that
advocating
much.
for. Well, look, there's only one race. It's the human race. That's it. Like, anyway, we've got 2 more super chats. The real problem: Epstein class rule the world.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. White House is the Epstein class. Like,
yeah.
I'll point this out.
Johnson.
Something else I've realised: Maxwell was coming to the UK, right? That means that she would have had a laptop and a computer here. That means there are emails on those laptops. There are photos on those in those emails and laptops and desktops. Why have the police not gone for that? Because it's part of the Epstein class, in my opinion. There's no other explanation.
Did she have a home here? Did she live here?
Yeah. But that's where the Virginia Roberts photo was taken. It was in her flat. Like, she's had, I think you can even see there's a computer in the background. Yeah, so why have we not gone and got those computers?
Well, they might not be there anymore. Someone else might own that flat. I don't know if she sold it.
She sold it, but
she wouldn't have left her laptop in the flat, mate. She's like, well,
we don't
keep the laptop with all the incriminating evidence on. Bye. But the evidence is all there. The American government just refused to release anything that mentions Donald Trump.
I don't know if it is. She's got relatives that still live in the UK, in Oxfordshire and Surrey. There's nothing to say that they wouldn't have kept some of her stuff. We don't know because no one's looked. And we've missed that opportunity. And that is actually a hugely accountable piece that should have been grabbed at. And it's a joke. It's a fucking joke in this country. I will also go Tonthon. Vicky Clee is like Melancon? Incapable versus reform. I mean, look, I'll say this to Tonthon. Look, mate, give us £1 million. We'll set up the biggest media program you've ever seen. And we'll do exactly what you want. Instead of these £5 donations, just if you've been doing that for 4 years, just give £1 million and we'll set up a media structure that will rival just about anyone.
Can I just say, Alistair, you don't need to time out Tom Thumb because Tom Thumb's giving us money. Just keep giving us money to insult us and say we know nothing about what we're talking about. I've only got a degree in history and politics, but and I've been to every country in the world. But yeah, I didn't pick up anything. I just listened to music the whole way. Kept my eyes closed.
Dead body on Sandringham Estate. They
Sorry?
found a dead body of a Latvian girl on Sandringham Estate. Have you? In
Oh, really?
2012.
What? Where did that come from? What?
2000. Well, we're just talking about Epstein, and there's like loads of comments about Epstein and like the Epstein connections. Did you hear there was a body found on Sandringham Estate in 2012 of a decomposed body of a Latvian girl?
Really?
What?
You not heard this?
No, not at all.
It's insane. Yeah, got brushed under the carpet pretty much. I think they even claimed. I think the newspapers came out and claimed, or some newspapers came out and claimed that she was a drug addict. But there was no toxology report. It's just made up gibberish. It's actually quite insane. And the dog walker that found the body has disappeared, died.
Well, Peter Mandelson did write to Epstein and say that he wouldn't have been arrested here. So
I think we have got well and truly off topic when we were supposed to be talking about the election results. I think that these election results were baked in for Labour. I think that they were the 1,500 seats they've lost. They thought they were going to lose that many. And one thing that's worth bearing in mind, the Tories lost that many in the May of 2019. They also only got 8.8% of the vote in the EU election later that month. And then they went on to win a general election 6 months later. 6 months, because they changed the leader and they put a simple message out.
Yeah.
Instead of going, well, the thing is what we're going to do. We're going to incrementally move this thing, and then we're going to ask that thing to do that thing, and then we're going to get Brexit done. Take back control.
I went back, because, these elections, the election cycles every 4 years for the council election. So I went back to 2014 for this round of election. And it's interesting to see, actually, because everyone's saying, whoa, reform came from nowhere. But reform was UKIP. And, yes, they have got more seats now than UKIP had. But actually, if you look at what the losses for the Conservatives and UKIP were, actually, nothing that fundamental has changed. It's just that in the years that the Conservatives were in power, Labour actually won more council seats when they were in opposition. So it isn't that fundamentally different in terms of the English local elections. The real change is in Wales. That is the real change.
Plaid being the biggest party for the first time.
That's what's frightening.
It's been Labour since we say it's been Labour since 1999. It's been Labour since forever. Like Labour and Wales have always walked in lockstep, even when horrific things happen like Aberfan.
Well, that's because in Wales we know what Winston Churchill did to us. So there's not many that would vote Conservative, and really coming through as a new brand. Yes, he's won some more support for the right wing. There has been a push to the right wing away from Labour, but the horses are scared of that, and that's why I think we will get proportional representation being rushed through now.
What do you think is the result of this, Liz? Like, do you think Starmer's going to cling on for a couple of days or weeks, months? What do you think is going to happen next with Labour?
I think this thing with Catherine, whatever her name is
Catherine.
I forgot her surname.
West was it? West.
Catherine West. I think that we've got. We'll see what happens over the next 24 hours. If it means that Wes Streeting says, "Oh, this is happening anyway, so I'm coming out." And then Angela Rayner will have to stand, and we'll be into a leadership election. So, we really don't want that to happen, because there's lots of problems with Angela Rayner. She's a Marmite character.
Yes.
And the polling shows you that Andy Burnham is much more popular. So,
do you understand why they wouldn't want Andy to step down as Metro Mayor of Manchester right now, because of the threat from Refuck taking over that particular?
I understand why they're saying that. I think that Andy's found somebody to take over who would be popular and would get people to unite behind. So I think it's a false block that they're putting up there, and they need to get Andy into Westminster. If we don't get Andy in, then the right wing will continue this impossible position of saying we're going back to Europe when we're not. We're actually becoming more Americanized.
I agree. And I think that they've probably done a deal. There's probably been some discussion in the background. Keep Starmer on. He's unpopular, but so what? In the midterms, and then given, once Andy Burnham is out as Mayor of Manchester, unless you want to put him in the House of Lords, You put him in the House of Lords, he can become Prime Minister tomorrow.
But it would need.
That's the it's
It would need
the one
Keir
weird
Starmer.
trick.
That is an option. They did it with David Cameron in recent times as Foreign Secretary.
Yeah.
So yes, they could do that, and they've got another peer as well who's the minister. I can't remember, but anyway, that's by the by. The right wing, Blue Labour, who's in power now in number 10, do not want Andy Burnham to come in. They know that he will derail the Americanization program. That is what's going on.
I think that they still want the Americanization program, considering what Trump has done to us and the trauma that he's caused, and the fact that he's made the petrol prices go through the roof and food prices are going to increase by 50%. I
live really near Fairford, and they keep saying that he didn't go with Trump in Iran. That is just, he's just saying that they're letting planes, or they let bombs take off from here, and they're saying what you want to hear to placate. But it's
not what Trump wants to hear. Why not placate Trump? I mean, that's what Kemi Badenoch and Farage wanted to do.
Trump is able to for his planes to take off and go to Iran. We don't really have an RAF left. We don't really have any equipment left. We don't really have an army. We've got a militia. But the truth of the matter is, we've done what he wants to do. It's true. We do actually have a militia. The numbers are, we don't have enough for army.
I've seen the SAS programs. They'll win everything.
Yeah, we don't have a navy either anymore.
Listen, we're going to have to wrap it up, because I really need to get started with my own show. I'm only an hour and a half late, but that's all right.
Well, it's been,
I think that's a record.
Absolutely cathartic and enjoyable. And thank you, teammates, and thanks for all the super chats and people listening. Yes. If you have been with us for this absolute marathon of, it's actually been 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Aren't we going to talk about the UFO files?
No, Alex, no.
I'm kidding.
Anyway,
let's talk about David Attenborough turning 100.
Oh no, I could definitely go on. That brings us back to Malthus. But anyway, yes, let's do that next time.
I think he's changed his stance on that recently. Anyway,
100.
Yeah. Anyway, Alex, go on.
That's it. No, thank you ever so much to both of you. Thank you, Viber Scott. Thank you very much to everyone that's put in the super chat and stayed on us for, this is a record, 2.5 hours. Graham, thank you very much for hosting this as well.
No worries, mate. So about the start there, I had your little intro set up and everything, and then it wasn't actually. I had to go into the YouTube thing and press go live, which I normally don't have to do.
Amazing. Thank you, team.
Hassle.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Great Sunday. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.